Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Why We Vote. Happy Friday to everybody. Made it through another week.
Just barely.
I know. This one was a tough one.
I wore my Jail Jenna shirt today because we were recording part 3 of the Tina Peters series. And then just before we went live here, saw that Jenna Griswold has a whole bunch of campaign finance complaints against her.
Does she?
I sent you that in a Telegram. If we have time, we can go through it.
I didn't see that. So we'll try and get to that tonight. We got a lot of catching up to do tonight. I've been just, kind of like bookmarking stories and everything. So tonight will be a kind of a catch up night. We do have an update on Tina Peters. A couple updates because so there's the story that's going around right now. Unfortunately, that she has been put in solitary confinement.
Yeah. Do we want to discuss this or do we want to hit our sponsors and then discuss it?
Let's hit our sponsors first. And Ash, you want to talk about Van Man?
I sure do. You know about Van Man taking down big toothpaste with all natural oral care, right? If you watch this show, you should. We talk about it a lot. It's the perfect time to grab the dental care bundle to gift. It's gift season coming up, and Van Man's tooth powder is loaded with minerals like eggshells and bone, combined with pulling oils and peppermint aloe mouth rinse. It's truly the ultimate fluoride-free dental hygiene bundle that saves you 25% off the individual prices. And the van never stops. Introducing Van Man's new Pearl Eye Cream and Sweet Onion Shampoo. Head over to badlandsmedia.tv/vanman to see what's new. It's badlandsmedia.tv/vanman.
All right. And Christmas season's coming up, guys. Make sure you're shopping America First Badlands stores. Help support Badlands. And
badlandsmedia.tv/shop. And you'll find all the sponsors and some stuff that, might not make it onto the shows in the reads, but great America First, American small businesses, lots of great gift options.
Heck yeah. And here's our next sponsor for tonight.
Earthlings, I'm here on the streets of New York to tell you about something that's literally out of this world. Traveling between dimensions really takes it out of you, but I've found the perfect solution. My Shroom Vibe can now be your Shroom Vibe. Elevate your frequency. Get microdose capsules, gummies, and chocolate bars at myshroomvibe.com. Use code BADLANDS for 10% off your order. Trust me, galaxy hopping demands balance, and ours comes from Mother Nature. Organic, not synthetic. It's the real deal. Cy Lee, if you know what I mean. Check it out. Your frequency will thank you. Visit myshroomvibe.com. Organic goodness, not synthetic. Use code BADLANDS.
Oh, where did we go? There we are.
Disappeared. We went to another planet, another world, really.
Every time I see that commercial, I think of G, because he gave me the gummies when we were in Cocoa Beach, and they were fantastic. Absolutely
enjoyed them.
Fantastic. I did. You don't have any of the psychoactive effects that you would expect, that you think. But man, I'll tell you what, I was happy as a pig in shit. Yeah, I said it. I was very, very happy when we had the debate on the beach, on the beach, boy.
That was fun. I feel like we never finished though.
No, we didn't. We
got distracted, and then that always happens at GART. In that I've said, I tuned into DEF CON 0 the other night, and I'm like, "What's up, Josh Reed? We need to finish all of our conversations." Because I feel like we had half of 3 conversations.
We need to next GART. We need to have somehow cell phone cameras that can go live to Badlands and just host these impromptu discussions and debates and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I don't know. We'll see if we'll continue that conversation at some point. But tonight it's all about elections because that's what this show is about.
Yeah. So Tina Peters, news came out today. I believe that Tina Peters' social media is the source on the news, that she has been put into solitary confinement. And the story goes that there was a teacher that was disparaging her and you know, kind of bullying. It sounds like bullying. I would categorize what they've said as bullying. And she lodged a complaint, and she is being it sounds like retaliated against. Do you want to read it?
Yeah. Just a quick question. Can you put the Lily camera on?
No,
Like, we don't have a, oh man,
it's not hooked up.
I want the Lily cam.
I know. I took I'll try and do it before Only Lands. I took the actual camera to Cocoa Beach with me, and I haven't set it up since I've been back.
Well, you got to get on that. All right. So
Sorry.
update on Tina Peters directly from her X account. Tina has been moved to solitary confinement today after filing a grievance with the warden about a teacher in the prison making statements to numerous other inmates about her. Some of those inmates informed Tina that this teacher was speaking openly about the fact that Tina is never going to leave prison and that the state will never let her out, etc. Tina asked this teacher about their statements about her while passing them in the halls of the facility. This resulted in the teacher and inmates antagonizing Tina and ganging up on her verbally. Inmates openly supported the teacher in their statements and berated Tina for not telling the media to stay silent on her conditions and details of her case. At the suggestion of another inmate, Tina filed a grievance against the teacher this morning. Tina was then brought to medical for a physical evaluation consisting of a strip search, a meeting with mental health, followed by the manager of mental health in the facility, and then made to wait for several hours. Tina was then informed that she would be moved to solitary confinement due to an investigation involving internal affairs. She was told the investigation could take up to 17 days. She expects to remain in solitary for the duration of the investigation. As of now, she has been removed from her normal cell and is currently being held in solitary. She has been told that she is, quote, not being punished, and has been allowed to keep her iPad, but does not have access to the internet and therefore cannot call any of her approved contacts or her attorneys unless the rest of the pod is put back in their cells until she has completed her calls. Unless the rest of the pod is put back in their cell until she's completed her calls. Okay. She's in a windowless cell again with no contact and will be allowed out of her cell 1 to 2 hours per day. This is a difficult day for Tina, as you can imagine, especially considering this is the eve of her mother's 97th birthday. Which that means today is her birthday. So happy birthday to the late Miss Peters. I think her mom's passed away, right? I think.
I don't know that to be.
Oh, no, I don't think she has, because that was one of her concerns, was that her mother would pass away while she was in prison.
Yeah.
Please keep Tina Peters in your prayers and pray that an honest investigation is performed in the misconduct of the individuals involved in the inappropriate and willful targeting of a political prisoner. Pray that she gets to see her 97-year-old mother again soon. I should have read the end of it. If you can support Tina, she needs your help. Please share her website, tinapeters.us. and encourage everyone you know to donate to support her living expenses and legal bills so that she can stay afloat and win, so that this can never happen to any other American. God bless you, and thank you for your prayers and support of America's Gold Star mother and the most courageous clerk in the nation. That breaks my freaking heart, man.
Yeah. There's a lot of folks in the chat that are speculating that the DOJ is not doing their job and that there's people at the DOJ that are blocking Tina's release. That is a narrative that's going around. Certainly, that's a message that's being carried by a number of prominent accounts. However, I will remind people that the DOJ really has very little power in this matter at all. What they can do is ask the governor to transfer her. If he says no, then they're going to need a court order, and they're going to need to find a judge to sign off on transferring her. And those steps are in process. They've asked Polis. We're going to talk about some of the response to that, because I think there's a chance he might do it, only because he is going to run for president. So
yeah, exactly. I think there's something's brewing. That's all I'll say. Let's pull this up.
And the First Amendment appeal is, there should be a decision at any time in that, I believe. The federal appeal. So there's a lot of potential outcomes that it does seem like people are getting ahead of. We should read the Weiser one first, because this is second.
I don't have that one, so you pull that up.
Oh, okay. Well, then talk for a minute and I'll find it.
So there's been a series of statements, letters, whatever you want to call them, open letters to Governor Polis, the governor of Colorado, and it seems like they're kind of worried. about the possibility of Tina being released to federal custody, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. The pushback that's coming from a lot of these elected entities or selected entities is kind of the evidence of that, in my opinion. Okay, you got the Phil Weiser.
Yeah, so Phil Weiser is the current Attorney General of Colorado, and he is also running for governor. He's going to come up again in another story that we're going to go through tonight. And then Dan Rubenstein is the district attorney of the 21st Judicial District, which is the Mesa County one. They've written a joint letter to Governor Polis. Dear Governor Polis, this is dated yesterday. As has been reported on extensively, the Federal Bureau of Prisons has requested that Colorado Department of Corrections inmate Tina Peters, case number 2022 CR 371, be transferred from state custody to that of the federal government. We ask that you deny this request. As you know, Ms. Peters is presently serving an 8-year and 3-month sentence under the custody of the Department of Corrections. The remaining time, just so folks know, was in Mesa County. It wasn't like they didn't reduce her sentence or anything. It's just that it was split in that way. Ms. Peters' sentence followed her conviction by a jury of her peers for crimes committed and prosecuted by the 21st District Attorney's Office with the assistance of the Colorado Department of Law. Ms. Peters was convicted for multiple crimes that harmed her local community and the citizens to which she was elected to serve as the former Mesa County Clerk and Recorder. Notice that they don't name the crimes. Ms. Peters was prosecuted under the authority of an office led by an elected Republican official, that's Rubenstein. It's a uniparty. And with the help and support of an office led by an elected Democrat official through a criminal process overseen by the state's judiciary. Ms. Peters was indicted by a grand jury of her peers and was convicted by a trial by a jury of her peers from Mesa County, long recognized for its deep conservative values. Ms. Peters' prosecution was supported and requested by all 3 Republican Mesa County commissioners then in office. Put simply, Ms. Peters is in prison today due to the crimes she committed that put Mesa's election systems at risk and violated the public's trust, and for no other reason. Wow. Her prosecution and sentencing were done with the utmost professionalism. So Brian and I recorded part 3 of this today. So we went through the sentencing today. So that's why the response is the response, because what an absolute load of bullshit. And respect for the rule of law, demonstrating how our criminal justice system should always work. Our criminal justice system should always work the way Matthew Barrett runs his courtroom. For fuck's sake. If federal officials wish to make determinations on federal judicial matters, they may do so. And while the president holds constitutional authority to administer pardons and commutations to those who violate federal laws, this power does not extend to those charged and convicted under state laws, as Ms. Peters was. Here, the federal government has no legal basis to interfere with the sentence in this case. This was a state prosecution for violations of state laws conducted by state officials, heard by a state judge and jury. Coloradans, specifically Mesa County citizens and employees of the state of Colorado, were the victims of Ms. Peters' crimes. Lying to Jenna Griswold's office. That's the crime. Those citizens to whom we are both accountable elected us to oversee prosecutions of state laws, as was done in this case. The Bureau of Prisons' request to transfer Ms. Peters is a transparent attempt to bypass the president's inability to pardon Ms. Peters and commute her sentence. At best, by seeking her transfer to federal custody, the federal government is attempting to circumvent Colorado's sovereignty to administer and enforce its own laws and to hold accountable those who break them. Shifting her custody to the federal government is an attempt to bypass our judicial system, all to offer a politically connected inmate the comforts of an easier sentence. This is not mere speculation or conjecture, as one need only to review recent reports on other politically connected convicted criminals presently receiving preferential treatment in federal facilities during their sentences. And the footnote goes to whistleblower speaks out on Ghislaine Maxwell's special treatment in prison.
They're comparing her now to Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yeah, they're saying that she's going to get the Ghislaine Maxwell deal if she's transferred. At worst, granting this custody request could aid the unauthorized or illegal release of a convicted felon by the federal government, an outcome that would not be surprising given the many statements made by federal officials and the president calling for Ms. Peters' release. The state of Colorado should not be complicit in either such arrangement. Failing to meet that principle will further strain confidence in our judicial process and embolden those lawbreakers that believe they can evade justice through political connections and pressure. As the two elected officials charged with the Peters prosecution, we urge your rejection of this request from the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Daniel P. Rubenstein, District Attorney, 21st Judicial District. Phil Weiser, Attorney General, State of Colorado.
So as Ash said, we did part 3 of the Tina Peters saga on it'll be posted, I think, on Tuesday on Alpha's channel and my channel, and then Ash is going to run all 3 shows consecutively, so you can watch all of them if you want to binge watch something one day and just not pop a blood vessel, or you probably will pop a blood vessel.
And I'm going to have Mark and Sean, at least in parts of the marathon that day, in the chat answering questions.
And, you know, one of the things, so it's been a little over a year since Ash and I covered the sentencing and the trial and everything else. And I didn't watch it. I wanted fresh eyes going into it because I knew we were going to play the whole thing. It's only like 20 minutes long, but I was so much more outraged this time hearing it than I think I was when we heard it the first time. I was pretty pissed the first time. This time I was outraged.
When we heard it the first time, we didn't know that Jenna Griswold had the BIOS passwords on the website. Kind of makes it all the more enraging when you hear what Matthew Barrett has to say, but the overt bias against Tina Peters. And to me, the fact that he prohibited her from addressing a whole bunch of the things that he relies upon in his sentencing calculus, that to me is an egregious violation of rights. It was her guilt was determined before the trial took place.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And the jury was manipulated to come to that outcome. Absolutely.
Now, and they were also almost sequestered, I guess would be the word. You know, they weren't permitted to see they weren't permitted to see the whole thing. So they were kept from being able to, sequestered is probably the right word, but
they weren't. The guardrails and jury instructions and rulings on evidentiary motions led to what I say is they were manipulated into getting to that outcome. They weren't sequestered in any way. They did, play the role of a jury, but the detail that most people miss is that all of the evidence that was used in the conviction of the specific charges that she was convicted on, all of that evidence was stipulated to. The state didn't have to prove anything. They were facts that were not in question. And the jury was prevented really from examining anything else. Great example of that is Dallas and his testimony at trial when he got on the stand. I think read his name into the record. They had a 30-minute sidebar, and then he was dismissed as a witness and not allowed to testify.
So the jury was,
and there was a lot of that.
Or sequestered. I'm going to
No, sequestered means something different, Brian.
Sequester means to isolate or to keep separate.
But to sequester a jury means that they are literally
in a different room,
taken out of circulation. Right. Yeah.
Okay. So the Tina Peters
case didn't happen is the point.
Tina Peters' case was sequestered. Her defense was sequestered. It was kept out of the courtroom. It was not permitted.
I still think that you're using the word in a way that's going to confuse people.
I am absolutely using it, and that's why I retracted the use of it. But when you fought me on it, I have to go to.
You had to double down on wrong. That is what you do.
I have to double. I'm not wrong. Not wrong. Not wrong. All right. So again, as Ash said, it's a uniparty in Colorado. It's a uniparty in every state, right? All the executive offices in every state,
especially in Colorado.
Yeah, Colorado's really bad. I will admit.
Uniparty test kitchen.
So then we got this letter today, and this is back to back. Isn't there a third one, or was it Weiser and Rubenstein?
Weiser and Rubenstein are one letter, 2 offices, right? So one is county DA's office, the other is the Department of Law, the AG's office in the state of Colorado. And this is the CCCA, which is an NGO that also just happens to be the ultimate point of escalation for all things election technology. And it's run by a lobbyist. It's totally a legitimate operation for sure.
And this organization is the one that put out the report.
If people didn't catch it.
They're the ones that put out the report 3 weeks ago, I think, that Ash and Colonel Smith covered on the show.
Matt Crane.
Yeah, Matt Crane and his organization. So they write, Dear Governor Polis, we, the multi-partisan Colorado County Clerks Association, respectfully ask that you not transfer former Mesa County Clerk Tina Peters to federal custody. We also request an in-person meeting with you prior to any decision so you can hear directly from the election officials who experienced the consequences of Miss Peters' actions. I don't know what that means, but well, let me read the whole thing first, and then I'll comment on that. Colorado's clerks, Republicans, Democrats, and unaffiliated have spent decades building one of the most accessible, secure, and transparent election systems in the nation. It was so transparent that they were going to delete the entire 2020 election from the Mesa County servers or system if Tina Peters didn't back it up. That's how transparent it is, guys. They have done so by following the law exactly as written, preserving all required records. Again, that's absolute a crock of shit. Maintaining air-gapped and physically secured systems, minus the BIOS passwords that were published to the Secretary of State website, enforcing chain of custody procedures, and working openly with bipartisan judges, canvass boards, and observers. Every clerk in the state adhered to Colorado's meticulous certification, audit, and oversight requirements. This is absolute bullshit.
Yeah.
These officials did their work.
Surprised.
I'm not. These officials did their work with professionalism, accuracy, and integrity, even under tremendous pressure. Now that I don't want to take away from, okay?
That's true.
And yeah, I want to be perfectly clear, guys, that these clerks, even though they're misguided in this regard, they are still doing their job to the best of their abilities. Go ahead.
Hold up. This is not the clerks saying anything. Okay.
Well,
this is Matt Crane writing a statement, probably getting a handful of rabid TDS Democrat clerks to say, yeah, buddy, sounds good. And then putting it out there as the clerk's statement. This is not the statement of the clerks. I have spoken to one clerk who said they were given no opportunity to provide input into this. I have a question into another clerk to find out if they had any opportunity to provide information into this. Haven't heard back yet. That's what I was just checking a second ago. And I imagine that the answer is no, because this is a statement that's put out as the clerks. This entity is an NGO run by a lobbyist who's also, in the broadest sense of the word, invested in our election system. Poster boy for global mobile voting, face on a poster. And he's the guy who puts this out. This is not the clerks saying anything.
Yeah, we'll address that at the end, because let me get through this. Miss Peters was the one clerk who chose not to. Her actions were not mistakes or misunderstandings. They were deliberate violations of Colorado law and or attempts to undermine public trust. Security cameras in restricted election areas were turned off, not against the law. Unauthorized
not a part of trial.
What's that?
That was not a part of trial.
Well, it was brought up a lot in the trial, but it wasn't part of the charges against her because it wasn't against the law.
She was not charged with that. Yeah.
Right. But they tried to use that to paint the picture that she's a criminal, and she wanted to do this in the blanket of darkness. Unauthorized individuals were brought into secure spaces under falsified credentials. Also not convicted on that. Established safeguards were bypassed, and routine election procedures were misrepresented as evidence of wrongdoing, as Ashe and Colonel Smith went through last 2 weeks ago. There's been no professional that has debunked the claims in the Mesa reports. It's just Matt Crane and his conglomerate saying, trust us, this is wrong.
Again, highest point of escalation from a technology standpoint for the clerks. If there's a problem with the technology, you need to know what to do about it. You call Matt Crane at the CCCA, not a technologist.
Exactly.
Lobbyist.
None of these political science major, right?
I don't know what his major was, but he is a Lafayette Group lobbyist. He's basically, I personally would categorize him as a communication and change management consultant. He manages the network. He makes sure everybody has the right talking points. He makes sure that that everybody stays on message. I don't know if that's his action, if he would call himself that. Methinks not, but that's what I would call him.
None of these actions protected her county. Instead, they created vulnerabilities where none had existed and forced Mesa County taxpayers to spend millions replacing compromised equipment and responding to the fallout. A jury of Mesa County residents examined the evidence, weighed the testimony, and convicted Miss Peters on multiple felonies and misdemeanors, all tied to her own conduct. Her guilt was not a political determination, nor was it based on policy disagreements on election administration philosophy. It was a result of a lawful judicial process rooted in factual evidence and decided by the community she served. When the events in Mesa County became public, clerks across Colorado stepped forward to explain the truth. The system had worked, the safeguards had worked, and Miss Peters' claims were not accurate. Again, that's wildly inaccurate. For doing so, many clerks and their families, including their children, were subjected to harassment, intimidation, and threats, some credible enough to involve law enforcement. We are deeply concerned that if transferred, Ms. Peters would continue disseminating the same false narratives that have already endangered clerks throughout Colorado and across the country. Her patterns of knowingly repeating false claims long after they were disproven has fueled harassment, threats, and intimidation against the very officials who protected the integrity of our election. Think about what they're saying here.
They all admit it. They all admit that it's about her speech. She has to be locked up
Exactly.
because of her speech.
Exactly. They are saying that because of her First Amendment right to talk about this stuff and bring awareness to this stuff based on evidence from, Texas A&M computer science professionals, people that have been doing this for decades compared to what they have, she can't talk about it. That is why they've got her locked up for, as Ash and I said earlier today, telling one lie to 3 separate people.
Yep.
That's what she's in prison for.
It's the misrepresentation that Conan Hayes was Jerry Wood. That is 3 of the felonies. The conspiracy to do that, to have Conan Hayes appear with Jerry Woods in the credentials, that's the 4th felony. That's the felonies. That's why 9 years. 1 lie, 3 people, conspiracy to do that, you get to 4 felonies. Now, in here, they're saying, oh, she was, manipulating and it was this and that and all the things. None of that's true. Mention the cameras, mention all of these things that were not the charges, and then say she was convicted for all of that. That's not how the justice system works. They didn't bring those charges against her because they couldn't prove them.
Yeah.
And now they're repeating them as though they did prove them when they didn't.
And just to remind you all, the conspiracy to what was it? What was the exact verbiage with Gerald Wood? The conspiracy.
No, there was conspiracy to engage in criminal impersonation. She was convicted on that. There is a conspiracy to conspiracy for identity to thieve identity, right? Identity theft, conspiracy to commit identity theft. I think it was. She was acquitted on that, and she was acquitted on identity theft as well. Those were the Jerry Wood charges.
The conspiracy for criminal impersonation. I want to remind you that nobody else was charged with that, and because the others were given immunity essentially to testify against Tina, and they lied about their testimony, which immunity goes away when you lie. Why'd you do the head side?
Because it has to be like somebody actually has to press that point, right? So Jerry Wood lied on the stand. 100% he did. Yvette Roberts, in my case, proved on the stand that she lied to in a dispositive motion earlier, right? That came out on trial. You could press the issue, but the judge has discretion to say, well, I don't think it was that big a deal, or I see no ill will in the lie they told before the court, and then it goes away. And that's exactly what would happen in this instance if somebody pressed that issue.
You said the whole case behind Gerald Wood was that he didn't know his identity was being used, and that's why it's conspiracy to commit criminal impersonation when he did know. So therefore, that charge should have been gone. It's not criminal impersonation. She
was acquitted.
No,
it's the conspiracy. So this is the conspiracy to commit criminal impersonation that she was convicted on is Conan Hayes showed up as Jerry Wood, not the credentials bit. The credentials bit she was acquitted on, but him actually being there and representing himself as Jerry Wood, that's the conspiracy part that she was convicted on.
Okay.
The him showing up, not the credentials bit. She was acquitted on the credentials. But I do think it's interesting, Brian. We talk about this in part 3, but that's not coming out until Tuesday. I do think it's interesting that the 2 charges, the 2 felonies that she was acquitted on, are the 2 felonies in which the defense was able to introduce evidence that the prosecution didn't control. Everything else was controlled. The signal gate messages with Jerry Wood was impeachment evidence. They had that evidence to impeach the witness, so they didn't have to disclose it. And that evidence that they used to impeach that witness got the jury to reasonable doubt on 2 of the felony charges. she was not allowed to introduce a whole bunch of stuff, as we discuss in part 2. And part of part 3. There's a lot of stuff that I think if she had been allowed to present her full affirmative defenses for the situation, they would have gotten to reasonable doubt. But the process was controlled so the jury really didn't have a choice.
Yeah. And again, by the way, part 3, Tuesday, it's got the Mesa 3 report, and then we go into the closing arguments. Mark Cook joined us again, and he was just fantastic going over the Mesa 3 report and what was in there, explaining it in a very fundamental way that anybody would be able to understand. So, all right, the risk to these public servants would only grow if she were allowed to use a new legal narrative to further these falsehoods. These election professionals stood up for the law, for the truth, and for the voters of Colorado. In return, they endured fear for their safety and reputational attacks that continue even today. To remove Ms. Peters from Colorado custody now at the urging of political actors outside our state would send a deeply damaging message to the clerks who upheld their oath under extraordinarily difficult circumstances. It would imply that accountability for violations of Colorado law can be negotiated or avoided, while those who acted honorably were left to face the consequences alone. It would also undermine the work of Colorado's prosecutors, jurors, and judicial system, each of whom fulfilled their responsibilities thoroughly and independently. Because of the significance of the issue for election officials statewide, we ask that you decline any request to transfer Ms. Peters to federal custody. Colorado's judicial process should be respected, and the sentence imposed by a Colorado court should be carried out under Colorado's authority. Send a message to all Coloradans, to the nation, and to every public servant watching that this state does not abandon those who do what is right. Courage, integrity, and the law still means something here. Unless you're a pedophile, and then you don't, it doesn't mean anything. In fact, they'll fight for you because you were abused, and that's why you abuse children, because you were abused. Colorado's clerks have demonstrated extraordinary courage throughout this challenging period, upholding the law, defending the truth, protecting the election process, and serving voters despite threats, harassment, and intense political pressure. Now, more than ever, they need your support. We now ask you to show that same courage on behalf of the election officials of this state. Governor, please stand firmly with those who honored their oath, safeguarded our democratic institutions, and protected the rule of law. Doing so will send a powerful message that Colorado does not retreat when the truth is tested. For these reasons, we expect that you will meet personally with Colorado's clerks before any final decision is made. This personal meeting is crucial to ensure that the voices of those who bore the brunt of these events are fully heard. Respectfully, Colorado County Clerk Association. And I'll just throw this in there.
Everything that guy just says bullshit. Thank you.
And that's pretty much it.
I mean, pretty much.
So again, going back to what I was saying earlier.
He's a real scumbag.
Yeah, he is. Going back to what I was saying earlier, this is representative of the Colorado County Clerks. Like, that's the whole point of the organization, but it's not. It's a facade. It's a facade. The clerks have a little meeting, powwow. Hey, can we talk about this? Sure. And just they're ultimately pressured into putting their name to this. I don't
even think they put their names on it. It's, hey, we're going to issue a statement, et cetera, et cetera. And then probably, and I'm guessing, and I wasn't there, but I do know that they've had at least two that the CCCA has had at least 2 emergency meetings, which again, communications change management, manage the message, make sure everybody's on the same talking points, manage the message, there's this issue going down in El Paso County, manage the message, manage the message, manage the message. That's what we're doing. At least two emergency meetings in the past 24 hours about this, maybe 36 hours at this point.
Yeah. And that's signal to me. That is signal to me that there's something brewing on this, and that, there might be some movement on this, hopefully.
So the question of asking Polis to move her to federal custody, that is something that depends on Polis. And Polis is widely speculated to be running for president. He's termed out as governor, and, running for president in 2028 seems to be his next step. So that's, calculus for him. Go against the radical. Colorado is a national punchline. So Polis coming out and being like, I'm the adult in the room. I'm going to do the right thing. And, she was bad person and she did, bad things with elections, but this could be a little cruel and unusual. And she's old and she's sick. So I'm going to do the right thing and let her out and then run for president. That'll probably win him some votes. But aside from that, the option of Colorado letting her out, she's their most important scalp. She is their most valuable scalp. They changed the law because of her. They are so deeply invested into it's like the J6 narrative, right? Like there's no way that the people that believe the J6 committee can ever, even consider that was bullshit. They're so deeply, that's how it is with Tina Peters here. They're so deeply invested in this narrative that they've built around, Conan Hayes' Jerry Woods taking an image, completely lawful. Wasn't charged with taking images because that was completely lawful. It was a misrepresentation. One person 3 times to 3 different people. That's why Tina Peters is in prison for 9 years. It's a freaking show trial. And they're making an example of her. So that's the one path. I think it's slim that it's going to be successful just in that direct way, right? That Polis is going to look at this and say, yeah, I'm going to let her out. But I do think there's a possibility because he wants to run for higher office.
I remember the one time in my short time covering, I don't cover Colorado specifically, but I remember the one case where I actually gave a little hat tip to Polis. And do you remember what it was? Do you remember the story?
No.
So there was a kid in school in Colorado that had a Gadsden flag patch.
Oh yeah, he was in El Paso County. I met that kid.
He had a Gadsden flag, that's the "Don't Tread on Me" sticker, on his backpack, and teachers suspended him. I think they suspended him for having that on his bag, and he wouldn't take it off. And that's a nationally recognized flag. That's I don't know the exact verbiage, but that's a flag that's recognized by our government as a historical, representation. And Polis came out supporting that kid and said that that's a First Amendment right. And so I'm hoping that Polis looks at that letter from the clerks. You don't need to look anywhere beyond that letter from the clerks. And that letter from the clerks is explicitly saying she is a First Amendment threat to us if she gets out. That's all that letter says. Everything else in that letter, she didn't keep her oath. She absolutely kept her oath. She's the one that upheld 52 USC 2071 in the Colorado statute about preservation of records. She lied to a elected official that
3.
She was also an elected official. Well, one elected official and then 2.
They're not. Actually, I don't think any of them are elected officials. All 3 of them are bureaucrats. It's Jesse Romero, Danny Casillas, and the Mesa County guy's name, I forget.
Yeah, I can't remember.
If you think it's important, I'll look it up.
But either way, it's absurd. And all the lies revolved, well, not all of them, but the lies revolved around COVID policies. And as a result.
Yeah, that's the other thing, is that it's not like she violated the law. Actually, what happened is that she violated Jenna's arbitrary COVID rule that said you can only have people in your office that, because COVID is super scary, guys. Because of COVID, you can only have people in your office that are employees. And that sort of started this process. At trial, Matthew Barrett at one point said, I don't think the jury was present, but at one point said, when they were talking about the jury instructions and things, that if she had just chosen not to comply, there wouldn't be charges here. But because she misrepresented the person, that's where the charges come from. So the whole narrative about her threat to democracy and messing with elections, I think was the way Jenna Griswold said it last. Like they want you to believe that they're talking about tampering with or election meddling, but she's not charged with that. She didn't do that. None of that's actually true. So they say things like messing with elections.
Yeah.
Scumbags.
It's absolute crap. So the last thing I want to say in closing before we move on from this, well, actually, I did want to highlight real quick. Sidney Powell had a post up saying absolutely inexcusable. This is about Tina being thrown in solitary. The Justice Department should have had her out in the first week. She should be in federal protective custody. This is a bloody outrage. And this goes back to Ashe, one of the kind of debates that you and I had, although I think we ended up agreeing. Ultimately, we ended up agreeing. How do you put her in federal custody if she's if she's testifying against the weaponization of the federal government?
Actually, I think that I think the weaponization, she is a material witness and whistleblower to any weaponization of government in Colorado investigation or prosecution that exists. Now, we don't necessarily know if there is such a prosecution. They hinted in their motion in her bond, statement, the DOJ statement in her motion for bond pending appeal, they mentioned that the DOJ was looking into weaponization of government in Colorado. I don't know if that officially launches an investigation or if there is such an investigation, but if there is, and they're going to go towards prosecutions, Tina Peters is a material witness to that. I think she has firsthand knowledge on which she could testify. If we're talking about her being a federal whistleblower, federal witness that requires protection for election fraud, which is what has been stated broadly, and large accounts everywhere are saying needs to be done, and then turning around and blaming the Department of Justice that this hasn't been done. Why haven't you declared her a federal election fraud witness and moved her into federal custody? Well, that gets down to what is the testimony that she is going to give as a witness to election fraud, because she doesn't have firsthand knowledge.
Right.
She didn't take the images. She didn't analyze the images. She didn't write the report. She didn't see election fraud. So that's the part of this where there's been a lot of sensationalized stories around what the DOJ can do. And in my opinion, covering this trial covering this story since the raiding of her office in August of 2021, I don't see that path. That to me has been, it seemed like a setup for the DOJ. Try and like put this out there, say we can do this thing. And then when they don't do this thing, which in my opinion is a novel legal theory, then, you blame the DOJ and you start screaming about infiltrators in the DOJ stopping Tina Peters. I don't think that was ever a viable path. I'm not a lawyer, but I do know the rules of evidence because I had to use them in court.
You're smarter than most lawyers.
Mm.
You are. Most lawyers
God help us then.
Most lawyers are absolute retards. Not even,
or just cowards. Because that's the big, it's not, to me, the problem with most lawyers is not that they're stupid, it's that they're afraid. They have zero courage when it comes to anything that might cause them a personal, anything with the bar, anything with, future clients they might want to have. Their incentive structures are all whacked out and none of it has to do with justice.
Yeah. All right. So rumble.com/CannCon, rumble.com/The Alpha Warrior Show, and rumble.com/My America. Those are me, Ash, and Alpha's channels, not respectively. And you guys can follow us there. And we'll have Tuesday, we'll have the third part up. And like I said, Ash will have the 3 parts up together with Colonel Smith and Mark Cook lingering in the chat. Part 3 was an absolute banger. You're going to want to see that. Do you want to go now? Do you want to get into? Go ahead.
I want to talk about the story that I have because it's the same people. So I feel like it makes sense.
Yeah, perfect.
So we're just talking about, because we read that letter, right, from AG Weiser about how we're a rule of law. This law is super important and politically connected friends shouldn't get any sort of special favors. This out of Rocky Mountain Voice today. Campaign finance storm erupts as Weiser, Bennett, and Griswold face 3,674 alleged violations. This is a very generous photo here. Actually, for all 3 of them, all 3 of them are made to look way better than they actually do in this photo. Colorado's 2026 election landscape was shaken today as 2 major new campaign finance complaints were filed against gubernatorial candidates Philip Weiser and Michael Bennett, bringing the statewide total to 3,674 alleged violations by 3 of Colorado Democrat Party's most prominent candidates. No Colorado citizen has ever filed an evidence-based campaign finance action this large, covering this many statewide candidates with this volume of documented violations. This is unprecedented in scale, said Ethan Augreen. The filings come just 48 hours after the Colorado Attorney General's office upheld a separate complaint alleging 492 violations by Attorney General candidate Jenna Griswold, confirming the validity and seriousness of the allegations. Before I move on, this is really interesting because, several months ago, there was a campaign finance violation of Jenna Griswold for governor. and Attorney General Weiser for governor dismissed that one. And then Jenna was running for AG. I'm sure it's coincidence. 2 new complaints filed today allege 1,908.
Wait. Weiser's running for governor, right?
But Jenna Griswold, the campaign finance violation that I'm referring to is for her Colorado, or Jenna Griswold for governor website, which her brother apparently set up and denied it until they proved that it was him. And then it was like, oh, it was just like exploratory kind of stuff. And then Weiser got involved. They had like a sit down or something. And then Jenna wasn't running for governor. She was running for AG, and the campaign finance complaint was dismissed.
Yeah, it's almost like it was like, hey, scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
I mean, that's what it looks like.
Yep.
Certainly looks like there is the appearance of impropriety.
It has all the earmarks.
It has all the house there is. So
it has all the earmarks of impropriety.
All the classic earmarks of Democrat corruption. 1,988 violations by Attorney General Phil Weiser, including he's the one that litigates these. Hundreds of contributions lacking the required donor name, address, employer, occupation information, totaling $202,534.24 in aggregate monetary value, improperly disclosed. 1,194 violations by U.S. Senator Michael Bennet, revealing widespread failures and mandatory disclosure under the Fair Campaign Practices Act, totaling $152,102.50 in aggregate monetary value improperly disclosed. And I wonder, Brian, how it relates to smurfing.
Who investigates that? That's the first thing that popped into my head too. Is this a smurfing thing? Because there's an active investigation, right? So if the AG is implicated in this, who investigates it then? Does it go to another state? Do you bring in outside special counsel?
I mean, FEC is federal, right?
Is that what it was? FEC?
I think they're.
Or is it state campaign finance?
Finance.
Well, hey, if any of them came from outside of Colorado, just one. All it takes is one to come from outside of Colorado, and the federal government can get involved.
Yeah. Something to look into.
Interesting. I'm gonna have to read that and do a little write up on that afterwards.
Yeah, I sent you that link in our Telegram chat.
Yeah, I didn't see it until just now, so appreciate that. All right, let's get into. We'll stay on the corruption train here, and we'll talk about this from the DOJ, or to the DOJ, from Christina Bobb. That's a name I haven't heard in a while. Marine, JAG officer, previous Trump attorney, was the one that was, what would you call it, present at the Mar-a-Lago raid in August of 2022. This is a whistleblower memorandum regarding the Attorney General taking money to influence political prosecution in the great state of Arizona. The Attorney General, the one that won by 280 votes in a statewide election. 280 votes. Ash, you think 280 people turned around and didn't vote on election day in Maricopa County after they saw the rejection rate through the roof?
Yeah, I mean, there was so much. There's literally zero reason to trust the election results out of Maricopa County, with the level of obstruction and the outright lies that the Maricopa County officials told to the Arizona Senate and to the investigators and to courts of law, multiple courts of law. There is zero reason to trust anything coming out of Maricopa County.
You know, that is one of the. And let's put on our conspiracy theory hats here for just a moment. I never
take mine off, Brian.
I know. I'm in the conspiracy room. I'm in the tinfoil room. But let's just think about this for a second. And you and I have talked off air. I've mentioned it briefly on air about, some things I think took place in Colorado around Tina Peters, some extracurriculars perhaps. When you look at Maricopa County, and you and I covered the Carrie Lake trial in 2022 around her gubernatorial race. And what? This is
that trial for me. My head goes right to the approval of signatures.
Oh, click the woodpecker.
This is the approval of signatures.
Yeah, we
doing signature verification.
that video made a cameo.
Chula Firefly gifted 5 subscriptions to Badlands Media. Thank you so much.
Thank you
And
very much.
Texas Jules also gifted 5 subscriptions to Badlands Media. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We appreciate that, guys. So here's the thing I've always wondered about the court case in Arizona is, why wasn't Abe Hamadeh involved in the Kerry Lake? Why wasn't he one of the plaintiffs in that case? Because one of the themes that we heard from Judge Thompson in that case was that they don't know if they could get to the point where there was enough damage done that could have affected the outcome of the election. That one woodpecker guy by himself is 280 votes.
Yeah,
I mean,
he
did like tens of thousands, I thought.
Yeah.
So that's one of those questions that like I never understood. And the Hamadeh trial that was taking place, I think in Pinal County or Pima County. I can't remember which county he was. Yavapai. I can't remember. Somebody in the chat, if Dawn's in the chat, she'll know for sure. But that case, like, why wasn't Hamadeh in the Kerry Lake case? Because 280 votes would have gotten him over the threshold. Then he's the AG, and that changes everything in Arizona. And this is, again, tinfoil hats are on. It had to be this way. Because if Hamadeh took Attorney General and had Katie Hobbs as governor and had Fontes as Secretary of State, and they have a law enforcement mechanism that is a MAGA Republican, in this case, conservative, that throws a wrench in their whole entire thing. And so I might be. I've asked.
You're saying it had to be this way from a white hat standpoint. You had to let the triple Democrat insanity progress for whatever outcome.
If we get resolution on all of this, then I would say that's in my opinion, that's it.
Yeah, that's a fair point. That's a big if.
It is a big if, but it makes no sense. I can't think of any other logical explanation why Hamadeh was not in that case. I can't.
Yeah,
that's he had infinitely more. I mean, Kerry Lake lost by 17,000 votes. Hamadeh lost by 280. Just the 19-20-inch paper ballot jam and the deterrence from people showing up at polling places, showing up after work and seeing a long ass line that they would have had to wait for 3 hours, but they got kids at home that they got to get to. You could have went and gotten 280 affidavits from Maricopa County residents saying that they turned away voting because of the long lines as a result of Scott Jarrett's absolute retardation. It makes no sense to me. All right, let's get into Christina Bob's whistleblower account here. And if somebody in the chat has an answer to that, let me know. Christina Bob, a former investigative reporter and attorney who worked for Donald Trump from 2022 to 2024, and I'm one of 16 remaining defendants in the Arizona criminal prosecution, state of Arizona versus Kelly Ward, the prosecution of the Trump electors. You want to talk about mishandling a grand jury? We talked about Halligan and the Comey indictment. This was a botched grand jury when they failed to read the Electoral Count Act to the grand jury. Current status of criminal case, the indictment has been remanded, and the court ruled that the prosecutors substantially infringed on my and my co-defendants' constitutional rights. The prosecutors have not reconstituted the grand jury, but are appealing the ruling. The court also made a prima facie finding that the case was brought for political reasons. The government is appealing that finding as well. The court's rulings confirms that this case was brought for motivations other than criminal justice. Bluff. There appears to be organized bribery in the state of Arizona and likely extending to other states. In the course of my criminal prosecution, the state of Arizona inadvertently disclosed information to the defense, which they have acknowledged as authentic. Inadvertently disclosed evidence, almost like in an Ashe's case where they inadvertently unredacted that woman's police report.
I think that was a God thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No question. Upon closer inspection, the Arizona Attorney General received $200,000, what appears to be in exchange for the Democratic Attorney Generals Association. Is that like the Colorado County Clerks Association, like another NGO handling our elected officials?
Well, I wonder, Brian, if it's what, my theory of my case is that they tried to pursue a criminal case about that complaint that came in.
Yep.
They couldn't do that, but they didn't want to let it go to waste because the complaint, was something they felt they could get legs out of. So they subcontracted their authority to NGOs to do it in civil court. And that's kind of so it would be like free speech for people, as like the subcon. In my opinion, they're very much operating as, it's a state action. There's a state action by proxy.
Ironically,
Hard to prove, though. Really hard to prove.
Wasn't the investigator also the same one that investigated Tina Peters?
Yeah,
Judge
it's all the same group of people, and it's the same people that went after Dallas. It's a small group of people that persecuted all of the election deniers.
Yep.
Real core group of conspirators, in my opinion.
All right. Upon closer inspection, the Arizona Attorney General received what appears to be $200,000 for what appears to be an exchange for the Democratic Attorney General's Association to have prosecutorial influence through one of their initiatives, the States United Democracy Center, in prosecuting their political opponents. To be clear, the Democratic Attorney General's Association paid Arizona Attorney General Chris Mays $200,000, and she gave States United prosecution power to prosecute Trump attorneys, allies, and electors. Prosecutors claim on the record and in emails that States United represents their office. Executive summary. States United is here. You read it. You take over.
Okay, hang on a second. I was in the chat. At executive summary, is that where I'm starting from?
Yep.
States United is a liberal nonprofit organization with whom the Arizona Attorney General's office claims an attorney-client relationship in this criminal matter. States United initiated the strategy for this prosecution, and the Attorney General's office continues to use their work product, most recently to request a search warrant, which is still pending. States United claims on their website they are an, quote, initiative of the Progressive State Leadership Committee, PSLC. PSLC has the same exact address, president, executive director, and nearly identical leadership team as the Democrat Attorney General's Association, DAGA, which is a committee of the Democrat Party. Additionally, DAGA pays the salaries of the PSLC employees according to their most recently available tax form 990. PSLC and DAGA are the same people sitting in the same building in Washington, D.C., getting paid from the same bank account. DAGA paid $50,000 to Chris May's legal fund on September 5th, 2023, long after Chris May's campaign was over and just a couple months after the Attorney General's office signed a contract giving prosecutorial influence to States United. The payment was also very close in time to the opening of this grand jury investigation. DAGA made a second payment of $150,000 to Chris May's legal fund July 3rd, 2024, over 18 months after her campaign ended and roughly a month after I and my co-defendants were all arrested, arraigned, and publicly humiliated. By comparison,
real quick, Ash, when we talk about DAGA, States United, anybody want to take a wild guess who the two people involved in those orgs are?
Mark Elias and Norm Eisen.
Let's find out.
And I'm guessing because I haven't read this yet. By comparison, DAGA donated to the Arizona Democrat Party in 2022 during the campaign cycle $25,000. Yet Chris May's legal fund received $200,000 after the election was over, but while she was developing this criminal case. Notably, DAGA did not make any payment to Chris May's campaign or legal fund during the 2022 election cycle. The payments only arrived after Mays was in office and had signed a contract with States United to participate in this prosecution. DAGA, the Democrat Attorney General's Association, benefits from the prosecution of its political opponents, Trump attorneys, and allies. This prosecution chills the willingness of Republicans to challenge elections or face criminal prosecution, a benefit to DAGA. States United, as an initiative of PSLC DAGA, has an inherent conflict and cannot impartially participate in the prosecution of their obvious political opponents. Chris Mays had an obligation to disclose that the organization she hired pro bono to advise her on prosecuting prominent Republicans is an initiative of effectively DAGA, which is a committee of the Democrat Party. Instead, she tried to cover it up. States United was exposed as assisting in this prosecution only due to an error. The prosecutors now claim States United involvement is privileged and are refusing to disclose their activity. Could Attorney General Mays have received the two payments totaling $200,000 for a lawful, unrelated purpose? Yes. However, there's a significant appearance of impropriety when 1, the payments come after Chris Mays is in office. 2, Mays gives a level of prosecutorial authority. 3, to an initiative, States United, of the paying party, PSLC DAGA. And 4, the payments just so happen to be around the same time A, the grand jury investigation was open, and then B, arrests were made of the groups of political opponents. The logical next question is, will there be a third payment if she secures a conviction? These actions raise serious questions of criminal activity. My attorney and I have prepared a motion to disqualify the Attorney General, her office, and States United from continuing the prosecution, which will likely be filed the same day I send this whistleblower complaint to you. The portions of that motion are relevant to establish this complaint are included below, beginning on the next page. You go.
All right. Statement of fact. The Arizona Attorney General claims an attorney-client relationship with States United. The AG's office does not dispute their relationship with States United. In fact, they continue to evoke attorney-client privilege in this matter and rely upon their work product to continue prosecuting this case. What happens to attorney-client privilege if they accidentally, send you information that, is potentially an admission of a crime?
Well, in my experience, they'll try to claw it back, but the cat's out of the bag, as your wife would say.
But if the cat's out of the bag, does that allow them to dig further, or is it just you got that and count your lucky stars that you got that? And
I think it depends. And so there's a rule of completeness, meaning if you have a set of information that's been, determined to be admissible, and then something else comes up, but it's outside discovery and it's outside when you could generally include additional information, right? The discovery period has closed. If it completes, it's the fuller picture of something that's already in evidence, then you could get it admitted that way. There's also ways, and I haven't personally done this, although I have looked into it for certain reasons. There are ways to pierce attorney-client privilege, particularly as it relates to government litigants.
The Attorney General claims States United represents her office in this matter. The Arizona AG's office claimed on the record that States United represents the Attorney General's office in this criminal manner, and all their communications with the liberal nonprofit are covered by attorney-client privilege. To support their claim for attorney-client privileges, prosecutors produced a contract signed by Daniel Barr, Mays' chief of staff, on behalf of the AG's office. Prosecutors claim the contract is an engagement letter, despite the fact that it does not identify any attorney licensed in Arizona with whom they claim privilege. The States United attorney's signature block on the contract is not an attorney licensed in Arizona. In asserting their position that they have an attorney-client relationship with States United, the AG's office sent an email to defense counsel stating, quote, "As discussed, the state did not intend to provide the July 25th, 2023 memorandum. Instead, the state intended to provide a publicly available memorandum from States United. However, because it was submitted and relied upon by the court, it was properly disclosed under Rule 15 as part of discovery. However, the state maintains that this was not a waiver of the attorney-client privilege. The state will not provide additional information from States United because of the attorney-client privilege."
Oh, man.
Ms. Bob disputes that a lawful attorney-client relationship exists. The AG's office maintains that States United represents the Attorney General's office in preparation and planning for this prosecution. It is also true that States United has provided legal services furthering this prosecution, despite never having entered an appearance. According to the memorandum that the Attorney General's office unintentionally disclosed, States United created the blueprint for this prosecution. The contract between the AG's office and the States United was signed May 15th, 2023. The blueprint memo drafted by States United was produced to the Attorney General on July 25th, 2023. That memorandum outlines the charges in this case, and the AG's office continues to rely on that guidance to request a search warrant after they secure the indictment, which is now how the defense discovered the memo.
States United originates from the Democrat Attorney General's Association, a committee of the Democrat Party. Norm Eisen, woohoo, launched States, I got that one right, launched States United, originally called Voter Protection Program, shortly after the 2020 election, quote, to monitor every pressure point to ensure that Trump could not overturn the results, end quote. Norm Eisen is a prominent Democrat attorney who served as President Obama's ethics czar and ambassador to the Czech Republic. The attorney and law firm listed on the organization's tax form 990 is Mark Elias. Damn, I nailed it.
Yes, you did.
Another prominent Democrat attorney whose website boasts is, quote, a mission-driven firm committed to helping Democrats win, citizens vote, and progressives make change. The organization was founded as a partisan effort to oppose Donald Trump and his allies and continues in that mission to the present day. States United, as an organization, openly calls for the punishment of Trump attorneys, including Ms. Bobb and her co-defendants in this matter. States United promotes itself as, quote, an initiative of the Progressive State Leadership Committee, a 501c4 organization. On the States United website, at the bottom of several pages, there is a notification that says the Voter Protection Program is a nonpartisan initiative of the Progressive State Leaders Committee, a 501c4 organization. Visit www.statesunited.org for more details.
Do not advertise for them.
Well, the Progressive State Leadership Committee has the exact same address, president, executive director, and nearly identical leadership team as the Democrat Attorney General's Association. Upon examination of the tax filings, PSLC has the exact same address, president, executive director, and nearly identical leadership team as DAGA, which is a committee of the Democrat Party. Additionally, DAGA pays the salaries of the PSLC employees. PSLC and DAGA are the same people sitting in the same building in Washington, D.C., getting paid from the same bank account.
The DAGA is a committee of the Democratic Party, according to Democrat Party's website. The Democratic Attorney General's Association is a committee of the Democratic Party. It appears that
don't say Democratic. There's nothing democratic about the Democrat Party.
I know, but I'm reading it as it appears. It appears that the Democrat Attorney General's Association paid Chris Mays $200,000 for whatever use in exchange for prosecutorial influence in this matter to prosecute their political opponents. The DAGA only paid Chris Mays' legal fund after her campaign was over, and her office signed a contract with States United, granting the organization influence in the prosecution. Notably, DAGA did not make any significant payments to Chris Mays during the election, but waited until after she won and had prosecutorial authority. By comparison, DAGA only donated $25,000 to the Arizona Democratic Party. I didn't say it. I almost did.
You did, sort of.
I know my mouth made the movement and air came out, but noise.
Roll it back and clip it.
And that was during the 2022 campaign cycle. Chris sent me the best video clip, whatever, to play. And I really wish I had it right now, but I don't. And I'm going to have to get it so I can use it against you.
Why don't I read and you go get it?
I can't. It's on my phone.
I would be fine to help you get more ammunition to use against me because you definitely need it.
All right. Well, fine. I'll just play it. I'll just play it loud on my speaker.
I work with retards.
Isn't that a little politically incorrect?
Oh, that's the hell with that. No one's going to tell me who I can and can't work with, right?
All right. Anyways, back to the seriousness. Defendant recognizes that the payments could have been made for lawful reasons, but the timeline and parties involved raises grave concerns about the impartiality of this prosecution, creating at the very least an appearance of impropriety. The timeline events. Oh, you go ahead.
The timeline of events and payments raises serious concerns about outside political influences in this prosecution. Chris Mays won her election in November 2022, which ended her campaign. She had received no payments from DAGA during her campaign. Attorney General Mays took office in January 2023. Chris Mays, through her chief of staff, entered a contract with States United, an initiative of PSLC DAGA, to provide legal services, granting States United a level of prosecutorial authority in this criminal matter. States United delivered a roadmap to prosecute. You just rolled right past the sentence.
Wait a second.
Yeah, everybody's in the chat's been talking about that.
I just saw it in the chat. I don't live in the chat like you guys do.
Oh, sorry,
Wow.
chat, that Brian doesn't like you.
I mean, I glance at it from time to time.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that we'll talk about it all weekend long and everybody will get all twirled up about it. But let's finish this affidavit. Granting States United a level of prosecutorial authority, States United delivered a roadmap to prosecute Ms. Bob and her co-defendants on July 25th, 2023. The first payment of $50,000 was made from DAGA to Chris May's legal fund on September 5th, 2023. Chris May's initiated a grand jury investigation into Ms. Bob and her co-defendants in December of 2023. The Arizona Attorney General's office violated Ms. Bob and her co-defendants' due process rights to secure a widely publicized but unconstitutional indictment from the grand jury on April 23rd, 2024. The unconstitutional indictment provided an opportunity for a Democrat Party to publicly humiliate Ms. Bob and her co-defendants in an effort to sway voters for the upcoming election. Ms. Bob and her co-defendants were arrested, arraigned, and widely slandered on May 22nd, 2024. Following the indictment, DAGA made a second payment of $150,000 to Chris May's legal fund on July 3rd, 2024. Arizona AG Chris May's conduct raises serious concerns that the Arizona Attorney General has given authority to an initiative, States United, of the Democrat Attorney General's Association to prosecute Ms. Bob. In exchange, it appears that the Attorney General Mays was paid $200,000 potentially to allow a committee of the Democrat Party to influence this prosecution for political gain.
All right. So that's pretty shocking. $200,000 after an election to your campaign account, which becomes your own personal funds, you know, whenever you pretty much want, I think. Man, how like, and maybe this is something I'll text Rachel and ask her about this, but like, how do you investigate that further if it's between an attorney and her client?
Well, this is how I think a lot of the RICO level crimes happen, is that they do them through the law firms. And so
Right.
they can claim privilege. And in certain instances, like in my case, they all sign the pleadings because then you can't question them at all. Even if they have nothing to do, like John Bonifaz never showed up at all in any of the pleadings, didn't write them, but he signed them all. So he's protected. Oh, I happen to think he's a co-conspirator, but I don't know, man. You go back to that 2015 Social Justice Law Review article, Voters Straight Back, which provided a roadmap for how to prosecute your political opponents using civil rights laws.
Yeah.
And election laws.
There was another story that is pretty interesting, and I'll pull this up real quick. So U.S. Digital Response is
the story.
Yeah, this is a story came out yesterday, and it's from Election Line, which apparently is a project of the Election Center. So another NGO that has exorbitant funding. It's funny how that works on their end, and our end we're just like hung out to dry because we're actually trying to get free and fair elections, and they're trying to further expand upon mass centralization and everything else. So USDR was one of the Zuckerbucks fund recipients, one of the trusted partners or whatever. I can't remember the exact terminology that they used in them. And, you know, we're running out of time here. So just basically to make a long story short here, we'll read from this little part right here.
We need more technology. The bottom line is that we need more technology. Let's stick a whole bunch of more technology in the mail-in voting process, because that's how we're going to make it more secure.
Yeah, they want to digitize chain of custody, which is a absolutely horrible idea. They don't follow chain of custody currently at all. Like it's atrocious how bad it is. And to be fair, it is kind of complicated. Like some of the stuff that they actually have to do is a little bit complicated, but
it doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be. They complicate it themselves. And so now the idea is to make it digital.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's a big no. Especially
Hard
if
no.
U.S. Digital Response is involved in it. They had so U.S. Digital Response was the organization that was trying desperately, I believe it was USDR that was trying to get the API access to the voter rolls in, I think, Michigan and Wisconsin. I know they had some affiliations in Georgia as well during the 2020 election. We're going back to there. And yeah, just a horrible idea to let them get involved. So they want to go to cell phone voting. We saw that one, that Uokava cell phone voting is being rolled out in, was it Arizona?
No.
I think it was Arizona.
Well, Uocava have to be uniform.
The U in uniform means uniform.
I understand what the U in uniform means. I'm asking. I thought that Uocava votes had to be that the treatment of Uocava voters had to be uniform.
I don't know. Hold on, let me check this real quick.
Because that's best that you get yourself into unequal treatment if there's better access for Uocava voters in Arizona than there is in Colorado. Because that's federal law. That's why I thought it had to be uniform.
The state that rolled out the Uocava cell phone voting as a pilot is Oregon, specifically in Jackson County and Umatilla County.
Anybody sue?
I don't know. These two counties introduced mobile voting pilot programs allowing Uocava voters to vote using an app on their smartphones. The pilot uses the Votes, VOATZ app for voting, which is about as fake as actual voting. Like, it's a good representation of what voting actually is.
So it's a significant portion of Uocava voters, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Most
Totally
of them
fake. Never even step foot in the United States because they're fake. They're not real people. Using
foreign ghost voter, fucking ghost foreigners. Phantom foreigners, Brian.
Hold on. So prior to Oregon, Utah County and Utah and West Virginia had also piloted mobile voting options for Uocava voters, with West Virginia being the first state to use blockchain technology for mobile voting in a federal primary election pilot in 2018. I didn't know it went that far back.
Who's blockchain?
Bitcoin. No, I'm making that up.
I guarantee you it's not Bitcoin.
I'm making that up. Get your Bitcoin now, guys. Buy the dip. All right. So that's going to be pretty much it, because anything else we go after.
Okay, but we only have 10 minutes left. We have a couple Rumble rants.
So Marjorie Taylor Greene put out like a 10-minute video on her resigning. I hate to see that. I really do. Yeah, I don't like. I like MTG. I've always liked MTG, even when it wasn't popular to like MTG.
I don't have an affinity for any of these people. This is what happened with my Congressman Ken Buck. He just, had a fight with President Trump, threw a temper tantrum, and then left his seat. And it's really annoying.
Yeah,
Trump wasn't even president then, but it was enough to make Ken Buck take his ball and go home.
I don't have an affinity for her, but of all the people in Congress right now, I think she's one of the few that, at least verbally, says the things that we want to hear. Her show.
Yeah, I think the whole thing is kayfabe. I'm not convinced. I am not convinced that they are actually having a fight. It's all very silly to me. If it is a real fight, then things are worse off than I imagined in terms of the plan. But I don't necessarily agree that it's real. We had like 6-7 months without a congressperson here in CD4. And, then we got Lauren Boebert. So careful what you wish for.
Yeah, maybe she's going to run for governor. Maybe she's going to run for senator. Who knows? But I'm going to check out that video after the show. So I can't say much more other than that. It is funny that they get in that fight. Trump and MTG go at it. Trump goes out and plays golf with Lindsey Graham, of all people. And then at the meeting with MBS, Elon Musk re-enters, and that kayfabe drama's over, comes to a loving end. Anyways, I don't know.
I want them all to resign and for all of their seats to be empty.
Go full Chris Paul. I'm with you on that. RSC or IV, $10. Thank you so much. I'm sure that our clerk will be squishy on this, unfortunately.
Yeah, she and I have the same clerk, and she is very squishy on all things election integrity. That's the clerk's office that told me when I reached out for comment on Connec that everything was fine because the vendor said there was no door to China. And my response was, the vendor was just arrested. So maybe we should go to a different source. And then they stopped responding to me.
I will say this, the Colorado County Clerks Association, a private NGO, I think they've overstepped their bounds, and we're going to be looking at holding them accountable to Colorado public meetings law, because this is a conglomerate of elected officials that are.
I've been telling people what we're going to do.
I don't care. I don't fucking care, Ash.
Well, you don't live here.
Oh. Well, I'm doing it.
I don't care.
I don't care. How else are they going to meet? I don't care at this point. I'm so sick and tired of this. I don't care. Do. One thing's for sure. Oh, wow. My tinnitus just kicked in. Can you read that?
One thing's for sure. I heard her name in negative comments for so long. I'm never going to date a girl named Jenna ever again. Gross. That's right. That's right. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're doing. What a thing. I don't think there's anything wrong with leveraging modern systems to ensure that people living in the U.S., or at least who identify as living here, have access and voting rights. Andrew is trolling. Yes, I'm trolling. Trying to speak like a leftist XD. Great show as always. Yeah. People who identify as living here need voting rights.
All right. Are you going on OnlyFans? Because I have to make an appearance tonight to fight with John.
Yeah, we're gonna fight about J6, right?
No, we're fighting about Congress and their seditious conspiracies.
Oh, yeah. We're going to fight about that too. But earlier in the week, John and I agreed that we were going to fight about January 6th and just what level of Fedsurrection was it?
Oh, I came at the right time then. All right.
Yeah. So we're all fighting with John tonight.
I better go smoke my J now then.
I gotta go eat. I'm starving and our food wasn't ready before I had to go live. So now I thought several times you could hear my stomach growling.
Christy has been down at the beach since 4 a.m.
Oh, she dancing?
No, she's they're doing like a photo shoot or something. And so she was like in the water at like 6 a.m., which it's cold out down here. Relative term, I understand.
Guys, you say it's cold when it's like 65 degrees.
That's exactly what it was this morning.
It's like a balmy winter day.
65 is cold to be in the water.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'll agree with that.
Yeah. So, all right, guys. I think we had a Badlands boost, and I want to
hit the thumbs.
Hold on. We did.
Did we? I looked it up.
Yes,
I didn't see one.
I know we had one. I know we did.
Like button wherever you're watching us.
And I want to.
If you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button too. I'm trying to rebuild
yeah, it was
the Badlands.
I think it might have been from last week. Faith and Freedom. We appreciate.
Yeah, I think we read that one.
Yes. Well, thank you.
But we do appreciate you. Badlandsmedia.tv/boost. If you're watching us on replay and you'd like to support the show, we will read it next week.
All right. See you guys on Onlylands in about an hour and a half. Stay tuned for Spellbreakers coming up.
Before skincare went synthetic, people used something simple, something real. Tallow. Grass-fed and finished beef tallow is packed with vitamins A, D, E, and K. Nutrients your skin actually knows what to do with. It locks in moisture, restores elasticity, and defends against winter dryness. No water, no preservatives, and no BS. Unlike plant oils or chemical creams, tallow mimics your skin's own structure. Elbows, hands, knees, post-shave, anywhere your skin's crying for real moisture. Perfect for gifting or keeping your own skin soft when the cold hits. Visit softdisclosure.com and use promo code Badlands for 15% off. Ancient Care, modern truth.
Soft Disclosure.